Welcome to Honeybee. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Real stories of love, lies, and betrayal, where every truth stings. Let's begin. Looking back now, I realize I should have noticed the warning signs much sooner. But when you love someone deeply, you find ways to excuse behavior that should never be tolerated. My name is Matthew, and this is a story of how my 8-year marriage fell apart, and how, through that pain, I discovered something I never knew I was missing. Scarlett and I met in our final year of college. We had the kind of romance that felt straight out of a campus love story. 2 years after graduating, we tied the knot. The first 5 years were what I call a pretty standard married life. We bought a cozy little house, adopted a golden retriever we named Cooper, and settled into a predictable but comfortable routine. Scarlett was driven when it came to her career, often working late nights. I encouraged her ambitions, even if it meant eating dinner alone most evenings. I kept telling myself it was temporary, that once she was firmly established, we'd have more time together as a couple. But by our 6th year, I began noticing changes that couldn't be blamed on stress from work. Our intimacy, once a regular part of our life, 2 or 3 times a week, had dwindled to maybe once a month. Whenever I tried to initiate closeness, Scarlett would say she was tired or had an early morning ahead. She would scroll on her phone while I tried to talk to her, giving half-hearted answers when I asked about her day. Despite all of this, I convinced myself it was just a rough patch. Every marriage has them, right? I started doing more around the house, planned surprise date nights, and even brought home her favorite flowers. Instead of appreciating it, Scarlett would brush it off, saying things like, "You don't need to try so hard," or, "What do you want this time?" Back then, I thought she was just teasing me. Now I see she was taking my devotion for granted. The first real alarm bell came when, during arguments, Scarlett started making comments about feeling trapped or routine, about missing out on life experiences. I offered to travel more or try new things together. She didn't reject the idea outright, but never followed through either. Her work hours became even more unpredictable. 3 or 4 nights a week, she wouldn't get home until well past 10 p.m., saying she had client dinners or team events. Weekends weren't much better. She'd vanish for hours without explanation. When I called or texted, she'd reply late or sound annoyed. I started questioning myself. Was I too clingy? Too controlling? What was I doing wrong? Everything came crashing down one Thursday evening. Scarlett walked into the kitchen, where I was cooking dinner, and calmly told me she wasn't sure she wanted to stay married. She said she felt like marriage was holding her back from living her best life. My whole world spun. Instead of challenging what she said, my first instinct was to ask what I could do to make her happier. I was still completely in love with her, and I think that reaction sealed my fate. Scarlett could sense my desperation, and began treating our marriage like a game where she held all the power. She stayed out later and later, sometimes until 1 or 2 in the morning. Whenever I asked where she had been, she'd remind me she wanted a divorce. But I couldn't let go. I suggested marriage counseling, romantic trips, even taking time off work to focus on rebuilding our relationship. Scarlett would listen with barely concealed impatience, like I was too blind to see what she really meant. The truth was simple. She had already emotionally checked out, and looking back, I believe she was already involved with someone else. About a month after that night, I tried once more to get her to reconsider. That's when Scarlett told me she'd been reading about modern relationships and how traditional monogamy was outdated. She said many happy couples were experimenting with open marriages and presented it like she'd discovered some groundbreaking solution, when really, she was just asking for permission to sleep with other people. I was instantly repulsed. This was what I agreed to when we vowed to be faithful. Scarlett framed it as a way to reignite the spark, instead of divorcing. She claimed it could make us appreciate each other more, and even cited statistics and magazine articles about couples who said it strengthened their marriages. I told her no. She seemed disappointed, saying she'd hoped I'd be more open-minded. Over the next week, she kept dropping hints about how modern couples made it work. Then came the ultimatum. Either I agreed to an open marriage, or she was filing for divorce. She presented both options like they were reasonable, even though they both meant the end of our marriage as we knew it. I couldn't bring myself to answer right away. Something about the way she approached all of this felt planned, like she already had someone lined up and just wanted my permission after the fact. While I wrestled with what to do, Scarlett's behavior became even bolder. She started staying out all night. If I asked where she'd been, she would explode, accuse me of controlling her or stalking her. At this point, I realized I was losing myself. I decided to do something just for me. I joined a gym near my office, hoping exercise would help me manage my anxiety and anger. I was completely out of shape and felt awkward at first, but I needed a way to stay out of house and keep my mind from spiraling. Within a few weeks, I started to notice small changes, not just in my body, but in my mood. It was during my 3rd week at the gym that I met Amanda. She was a few years younger, friendly, and seemed to know everyone there. One day, she approached me and gave me a few tips on my workout routine. We talked for about 10 minutes about exercise and managing stress. Soon, these quick chats became the highlight of my day. Amanda remembered little details from our conversations and always followed up the next time we spoke. After months of being treated like background noise by my own wife, having someone genuinely interested in me was refreshing. I never dumped my marriage problems on Amanda at first. She knew I was married, and we kept our talks light. Still, she seemed to sense something was wrong. The contrast between home and the gym was undeniable. Scarlett barely looked up from her phone when I got home, while Amanda smiled every time she saw me. Scarlett made me feel like an inconvenience. Amanda made me feel seen. I wasn't looking for anything romantic. At that point, I was still trying to figure out how to save my marriage. But Amanda's friendship filled a hole I hadn't even realized was there. For the first time in months, I looked forward to something every day. After about a month, Amanda gently asked if everything was okay at home. I opened up and told her about the situation, about Scarlett's demands, the open marriage ultimatum, and how lost I felt. Amanda listened quietly, asked questions, and when I finished, she said something that stuck with me. It sounds like you're trying to save something the other person already decided to walk away from. Hearing that from someone outside my situation was both terrifying and liberating. She helped me see that I'd been bending over backward to keep Scarlett happy while ignoring my own needs and boundaries. Amanda reminded me that a healthy relationship needs effort from both partners, and Scarlett clearly wasn't trying anymore. That realization changed me. I stopped begging Scarlett to spend time together. I stopped asking where she'd been. I started making plans without her, dressing better and focusing on myself. I was still living under the same roof, but emotionally I was detaching. Scarlett noticed. Suddenly, she couldn't control me with her moods anymore. I was more confident, less available, and harder to manipulate. Instead of being happy about my improvements, she grew suspicious. She started interrogating me about where I went after work and who I was texting. Ironic, considering she was the one who'd been staying out all night. One night, she directly accused me of cheating. I almost laughed, this from the same woman who had demanded an open marriage. I told her plainly that I was finally focusing on my own well-being instead of obsessing over our broken relationship. She didn't expect that response. Soon after, things reached a final breaking point. One night, I came home from grabbing coffee with Amanda and found Scarlett waiting in the living room. She accused me of being too close to someone else and emotionally cheating. The hypocrisy was unreal. This was the same woman who had spent months staying out late, giving me ultimatums, and asking for permission to see other people. In that moment, I realized Scarlett had never wanted a truly open marriage. She just wanted the freedom to do what she wanted while keeping me as her backup plan. She expected me to wait around, be loyal, and pick up the pieces when she was done exploring. That night, I finally made my choice. I told Scarlett I was filing for divorce. I told her I had spent months trying to save what we had, but I was done accepting disrespect and emotional manipulation. Scarlett cried, accused me of never loving her, even claimed I had tricked her into staying. She said she only stayed because she loved me, but by then it was too late. Through my friendship with Amanda, I had rediscovered what it felt like to be valued, respected, and cared for. In the following weeks, as I spoke with divorce lawyers, I learned more of the truth. A mutual friend told me Scarlett had been having an affair with someone I knew, long before she ever brought up an open marriage. It made sense. She hadn't been suggesting we try something new. She had just been trying to clear her conscience while keeping her affair going. Ironically, the man she was seeing didn't want a real relationship with her, so she panicked and tried to return to me. But by then, I was already done. My connection with Amanda had grown into something deeper, though she never pressured me to move faster than I was ready for. The divorce process was just as messy as I expected. Scarlett fought me on everything, money, property, even accusing me of cheating with Amanda. But the timeline of events showed the truth. I had documentation of months of emotional neglect, Scarlett's own request for an open marriage, and my efforts to fix things long before Amanda and I ever became close. The hardest part wasn't the legal fight. It was watching Scarlett swing between bitterness and desperation. She would cry, then lash out, then call my family to try to guilt me into staying. But I'd made my decision. Scarlett's actions hadn't created problems in our marriage. They had exposed the ones that had been building for years. Her affair and demands weren't the cause. They were symptoms. When the divorce was finally finalized nearly a year later, we split our assets, sold the house, and she was granted 3 years of alimony. Through it all, Amanda stayed supportive without interfering. She gave me space to grieve and process, and when I was ready, she was there. I don't believe my marriage was doomed from the start, but it became unsustainable the moment one of us stopped choosing the relationship. Scarlett's demand for an open marriage wasn't about saving us. It was about avoiding guilt while keeping me as her safety net. Looking back, I wish I had realized sooner that unconditional love doesn't mean tolerating endless disrespect. You can pour all of yourself into a relationship, but if the other person is already checked out, you'll never be enough. The biggest lesson I've learned is that a healthy relationship needs 2 people choosing each other every day. When one person stops choosing, it's not just a rough patch, it's the end. Amanda didn't save me. She simply reminded me what it feels like to be appreciated instead of criticized. She gave me the strength to choose self-respect over desperation, real love over hollow commitment. Scarlett still texts me sometimes. She seems to believe our divorce was a mistake, but she's never taken accountability for the affair or the manipulation. I don't reply, not because I'm angry, but because I've moved on. Now I'm with someone who values honesty, who sees our relationship as something worth nurturing, not something to take for granted. I'm building a life based on mutual respect, not on begging for scraps of attention. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I had stood up for myself sooner, but honestly, I don't think it would have changed anything. Scarlett wanted freedom, and she got it. She just never expected that I'd find something better for myself, too. I'm grateful for Amanda, yes, but even more grateful that I learned my worth. I deserve someone who chooses me wholeheartedly, not someone who keeps me as a backup option. And so do you? If you're in a situation where someone is asking you to compromise your self-respect, remember this. Real love doesn't demand that you sacrifice your dignity. Real love doesn't make you compete for someone's loyalty. Build a life you're proud of, with or without your partner. Find friendships and interests that fulfill you. Staying in a marriage isn't automatically the better choice if it means losing yourself. I'm happier now than I've been in years. Not because life is perfect, but because I'm finally with someone who sees being with me as a privilege, not a chore. And that's what every single one of us deserves.